Hey there, welcome to Paint Night. I'm Myron and I will be your host and instructor for the evening. The last time we got together, the weather was quite a bit warmer. We painted a beach scene and you learned the recipe for my citrus punch. Tonight, it's close to Christmas, the weather's quite a bit cooler, so we're going to be painting Mr. and Mrs. Snowman. And I'm also going to share with you my secret recipe for Christmas cocoa. So before we get to the studio, let's take one stop into my kitchen and I will share the recipe for Christmas cocoa. Okay, now it's time to make the special cocoa drink. You only need a few ingredients. Everyone that has tried this just loves it. So you take one packet of instant hot chocolate or cocoa mix. This happens to be Swiss Miss. That's kind of my favorite. You add some Coffee Mate vanilla creamer. Serving size maybe a tablespoon or so. Then get your hot water, and I think it works best if you use it from a tea kettle. So we pour it in. Don't put it all the way to the top, because then it'll be too weak. And you also need to leave room for the other ingredient at the top, marshmallows. Okay. There's one more ingredient. Okay, there you have it, my special recipe for Christmas cocoa. Let's go into the studio and let's get started. All right, our first step is after you've printed out the pattern, the template that we're going to be using tonight, we need to flip it over, and I'm going to use what I have a little light board. Lights up behind, and then you can see what's on the back of it. If you're lucky enough to have one of these, I picked it up at Walmart. I think it's about $15 or $20. It works great. But you can also put this on a piece of glass, like a patio door or a window, anything that has light behind it on one side, glass on the other, and you can just go ahead and tape it to the window and you'll be all set. And what you want to do is just wherever there's a line, just go ahead and quickly put some pencil on it, because we're going to use this to transfer the image to our canvas. And this can be really sloppy like. It doesn't have to be precise. You just have to get the pencil here so when we trace on the other side of it, it will transfer to the canvas. And this can just be very quick, real sloppy like. As you can see, I'm not taking a lot of time to make all this perfect. I am just covering the lines a little bit. I tend to use carbon paper or tracing paper when I do this, but I know not everyone has that, so I'm showing you this technique as I do in all my painting instructions, because I like to start with the sketch first rather than just applying paint to the canvas. I think it just gives you a better indication of where you're going to be putting the paint. And this really does not take long. As you can see, I am almost done with this already. This is something you don't want to take too much time on. See, I think I've covered all of the lines just like that. So the next step is to take our canvas and we will be applying the image to it. All right, now we take our 8x10 canvas, and we're also going to take the masking tape, and you're going to tape all the edges right up to the edge, and this is going to set us up for a nice frame for the end of the picture. So you can automatically put it on your wall, and it will look like you've got a little frame on it, a nice little white frame. Again, this is a really fast process. Line it up with the edge. And you want to make sure you go ahead and get this really nice and tight on the inner part because you're going to be putting paint on there and you don't really want it to bleed through. So the tighter that you have on there, the better it will not seep through. And I tend to get a little seepage now and then anyway, so if you do, you put a little bit of white paint at the end, touch it up, and you'll be just fine. We're almost done. One side to go. All right, there we go. I'm just going to tuck these edges down, but you might want to put a little corner, fold it down, so when you peel it off, it's a little bit easier. It's not stuck on all the way. Same thing on these sides. Fold it on itself a little bit. All right. All right, now the next step is to take your template that you just put the pencil on the other side, so you flip it back over. And what I recommend is you trim the top of it so you can line that up with the edge of your canvas and then tape it and secure it just in case it moves while you are tracing so it stays in the same place. And again, you could use one piece of tape right in the center, should be sufficient. If you want to do one here and one here, that's fine as well. But I think I'm just going to use one. Take your ballpoint pen and trace around the moon first. And now if you look on the other side, you can see that it has transferred the image with the pencil. So now just do a quick press down on each of the lines. And as you're doing it, you can keep checking, make sure it's all transferring, and mine is. And you can see on the bottom here, the bottom of the snowman. Don't exactly, it goes past the edge a little bit, but that's okay. It just looks like we've cropped it a little bit on the painting. And that's just fine. I kind of intended it to look that way. All right. All right. And after we do this, we're going to use the Sharpie marker and go over it, so it doesn't have to be that dark. I keep checking to make sure everything's okay. Actually, there we go. And this Mr. and Mrs. Snowman are holding hands here. They get along really well, and they love each other. So they're holding hands. And it's cold outside, so they want to keep their hands warm. I got two eyes made out of coal here on both of them. And I think their mouths are coal pieces as well. Or they could be rocks, whatever you want them to be. It's your snowman. These are my snowmen, snowmans, snowman, snowwoman. Okay, and we've got the hills in the background, the snowy hills. Let's see where we're at. Okay, that looks like we're pretty much done with that. Now you want to take your Sharpie and go over those lines. And when we go over these with paint, you'll see that it will work really well. These lines don't have to be perfect. They're just an indication of where our paint's going to go. And we got the hill in the background here. So the edge of the hills. And you notice I don't have the snowman completely round because snowmen, if you've made one, they are not completely round. I've made a number of snowmen in my days. None of them end up being round. They're kind of sort of circular, but not really. And you can take your time with this if you want to, or just do a real quick sketch to get the the basics of where the lines are going to go. And here's her arm, her hand. We've got the hills, the background here. This one coming across here and going like that. Put her eyes on here. We've got her earmuffs. All right, and we still have the moon to do. Now, if you want to, you can put a circular pattern on there. Either a template or a coin, maybe a 50-cent piece or something if you want to get it perfectly round. But I'm not going to worry about that too much. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. All right. So that gets us to our guide, our pattern, and we are ready to move on to the painting process. All right, it is time to paint. First thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to secure my painting to my surface here just with a little piece of tape so it doesn't go moving around on me. I'm not using a canvas this time. I'm sorry, I'm not using an easel. I am using a canvas. I wanted to try a different setup. We're going a little bit smaller and it'll look a little bit better on camera if I do an overhead shot versus using my easel. So this helps it so it doesn't move as much. And I'm going to put another piece of tape on because it's still a little wiggly. So I'm just going to put this here. And I think I'll do all four sides. Sometimes I like my canvas to be mobile and I can move it around for different angles, but this time I kind of want it to be secure. And so you'll notice that I might have put a little flannel shirt on because it's a little cooler in my studio right now. And I wanted to be comfortable, so I put one of my buffalo check flannel shirts on. All right, you ready to get started? I have some paints on my palette here. I actually think this overhead camera is going to help be able to see what I'm using as far as mixing this time as well. So hopefully this works out good. So we're going to paint the sky, and this is going to be a nighttime scene, so we want it to be a little bit darker of sky. So we're going to take some blue and a little bit of red. That'll kind of give us a purple color. We don't want too much red in it. We're going to take a little bit of black. Okay, and we're just going to see how this looks. We're going to put it across the canvas. I'm using kind of the liquidy paint right now. It's I'm just using the Craft Smart from Michaels. It's the stuff in a bottle. It's a little bit thinner paint, so you'll see a little bit of the canvas coming through it. We're going to put a couple coats of it on, but to begin with, this will work out just fine. So the first part will be the black and the purple on the top here, and then we're going to move into a little bit more blue down on the bottom. I tend to like to use thicker paint for a lot of my work. This one I just thought I'm going to use the thinner, see how it works. I like the way the thinner paint glides, but I think the coverage is better if you use thicker paint like a Liquitex. It comes in a tube. So I like to try to keep my paint strokes going all one direction. On the first coverage, though, I'll go every other direction to try to get it going. And I'm going to paint right through and over the snowman here for the sky. And I'm going to pretend where the hills are going, because we're going to paint the hills next. So we'll get blue on those. And then while this dries on the top, we're going to be doing the hills in the background. And those will be snowy hills. So they're going to be a blue color. They're not going to be white. It's nighttime. So we're going to give the indication of the snow being dark. So we're going to make it a blue color. All right. So if you just keep them going nice, one long stroke, you'll get rid of, see these things? That's like, it goes like that. Just have a nice one smooth stroke going all the way across. And now I'm going to try to fix that there. Pretty easy. Okay, I think we're going to go over another coat with that once it dries. Okay, rinse out your brush. This might be bouncing the camera a little bit, I'm not sure. And mark, go ahead and wash out your brush and dab it on the paper towel to get all that color out. Now go straight to the blue, just straight blue. And we're going to, you can't really see too much of a color change with this, but once we put the second coat on the sky, you'll see the difference. But this is just going to be straight blue right now. And again, you can go right over the snowman, because we're going to come across that with a very light blue, and we'll add some shading to that as well. So, all right, go straight across here. And you want to try to get this nice and smooth because it is snow. You want to get rid of your brush strokes. So if you have any brush strokes, you keep them on the snowman right now. Here we just kind of glide it across, make it nice and smooth. That's looking pretty good. All right, now we're gonna make the snow on the ground. So we're gonna start with that same blue shade, go across. But as it gets closer to the snowman in the foreground, we're gonna change the background to a lighter color of blue. So now you wanna go ahead and dab into your white paint. And you notice this is my Liquitex white. I actually didn't have any of the bottle white, so I'm just using the Liquitex. You'll see there's a difference in the consistency of it if you're using that. And I'm going to dip a little bit of water in so it smooths out more. And if it actually looks more like snow if you have a little bit of blue, you have a little bit of white going through here. Takes on a characteristic look more of snow. And so as you get closer to the foreground, you want to have it to be whiter. Whiter, is that a word? I guess it's whiter is a word. Okay. All right. So you kind of have a gradient blend from the darker blue to the white. So it'll be sort of a lighter blue on the bottom. All right. So now rinse out your brush. I think this might be bouncing my camera, so I'm going to go ahead and rinse it by holding it up. Blot out the paintbrush. And we're going to wait for this paint to dry so we can do a second coat on the sky to make it a little bit darker. And then we'll do a little bit different technique with the hills. But we need this first layer of paint to dry. So take about 5 minutes, maybe sip on your cocoa, take a little break, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. All right, let's get back to painting. This should be dry enough for me, just a few minutes. So we're going to do a little bit of red, a little bit of blue, and a little bit of black. And we're going to go over this again. See how it darkens up a little bit better now? Now that you have the second layer. It's kind of like when you're painting your house. Sometimes the first layer doesn't work as well. So you put on a second coat. And that's what we're doing right now. So as we go down, you want to add a little bit more blue to the mix here. And then just kind of blend it in as you work your way down. And we're going to, you may say, hey, we're covering up the moon. Well, yeah, we're covering up the moon, but we're going to add some paint to it on top, and we're going to do a little white circle towards the end. We're not going to do it yet. All right, so add a little bit more blue to this so we have a nice little blending. Now, I grew up in Minnesota. Might have mentioned that on other videos. And I'll tell you, wintertime in Minnesota is not like wintertime in California. Nope. It is much, much colder. You could have an entire month or longer without ever getting above freezing for your high. And it could be around 0 degrees for your high some days. And so that's some pretty cold stuff. And when I was growing up, I liked to try to make snowmen. That's kind of why we're doing a snowman, because I like doing snowmen. But the problem is, a lot of people here in California don't realize it. Because anytime it snows here, everybody, you get to go play in the snow. It's nice and wet. And you can do snowballs right away. You can do snowman. Well, most of the time when it's snowing in Minnesota, it's pretty cold. And it's not like that right around 32 degrees. It might be that sometimes, but usually it's more like around 10 degrees when it's snowing. And when the snow is 10 degrees, it does not make snowballs. It does not make snowmen. It's powdery and it doesn't work. So we have an advantage when it does snow here that we can make snowmen easily, but there weren't that many days when I actually got to make a snowman back in Minnesota, because when it got warm enough, sometimes the snow just melted. So, okay, enough of that. We're going to do a little bit of shading on the highlighting, I'll say, on the hills in the background. So take your white and just outline the shape of the right side. We're going to do a little bit here on the left side, just a little bit. And then wipe the excess paint off of your brush. And so now you can just kind of blend that a little bit. Kind of a dry brush technique is what this is called. And so the moon is over here, so it's kind of highlighting the edge of the hills is what we're trying to make it look like. So just go ahead and blend this a little bit. And then we're going to do just the same, like right on the edge here, where you see that line. You want to cover that line up. Cover that up. Just like that. So you'll see when we get the snowmen, snowwoman, the couple, we get the paint on them, it's going to bring it to the foreground. And it's going to look really cool. Okay. So add a little bit of water to your brush. And go ahead and dab it out. And I think we can go ahead and start doing the snowman a little bit. So we're going to add some white and a little bit of blue. And we're going to start on the right side. Because we want a light blue. We want a little bit lighter. I'm going to get some of this paint off my brush, get a little bit more white. Okay, there we go. That's the shade that I want right here. Okay. Paint it right on top of your Sharpie line. There you go. And you want a little bit of a curve to this. Follow the contour of what you would imagine the circular part of the snowman to be. And as we go on this side, we're going to make it a little bit whiter, because you're going to see a little bit of the edge of the snow. It's being lit from the back. So we want a little bit on this edge here to be white. But you still want it to be blue, a very light blue. And keep following the contours of I guess it'd be a sphere of the snowman. But you'll see if you keep the brush going, the curvature, that it'll give it a three-dimensional look. So we do that on each one of our sections. Got the lower section, you got your middle section, and then you got your head. And we'll do this side. Make sure you cover up that line right to the edge there. And we're going to add a little bit of blue, so we keep that shape, that tone and a color. My paint is actually drying out a little bit on my palette, so I probably need to add some more. And if you go outside the line a little bit, that's okay. Doesn't really matter. Just bring the line out a little bit further and sort of fix it. Okay. All right, I think that one's pretty good. We're going to add a little bit of white to the edge. Works a little bit better when the paint is a little dry. Okay, so now you can see if the light is from the left side. And now we will start doing Mrs. Snowman, and I'm going to add a little bit of blue. Because like I said, this is starting to dry out for me. Again, this is just Craft Smart satin acrylic paint, blue. You can use pretty much any type of a medium to dark blue for this painting. All right, so we're going to use, again, go back into the blue, a little bit of the white. And as you put it down, you kind of see, oh, that's a little bit, that might be too dark. That might be, I had a little bit of a paint chip there. I don't know if you saw that, but I just scooped it right off. And then you just wipe it on your paper towel, get rid of it. Okay, so we're going to add a little bit of white to it. And you're sort of just mixing the paint on the canvas. It doesn't have to be perfect on your palette mixed. You just kind of push it around a little bit so it's a little bit lighter on the left side and a little bit darker on the right. And again, follow the curves. You'll have more of a curve on the edges. And then it gets a little bit straight in the middle. And then it starts curving the other way. just like that. A little straight here, curve on the side. Okay, yeah, that's good. Got a little bit of a, almost like a shadow on the right edge here. I kind of like that. All righty, and we're going to keep going. And we're covering right on top of the scarf, but we're going to go on top of that later, so that's okay. What we want to do is get the contours and give some 3-dimension to the snowman first. You just kind of keep playing with it a little bit, each section. See how I'm making those strokes? So it's just, you follow the contour. All right, so we're going to do the head next. We don't need to do the scarf area. We don't need to cover that up. We'll come back with that with red. And this, I'm just making it the solid blue, and then I'm going to come back and add some white on this side. Another story, when I was growing up in Minnesota, I absolutely loved moonlit nights when there was a lot of snow on the ground. It was so pretty, so peaceful. I liked going for a walk when you'd see just the moon, and it seemed so bright. About a year after I got married, we lived in a house that had a large, sort of a wooded area in the back of our house, but there was a large open area of, well, in the summertime it'd be grass up before an area of like a wooded area. And then when it snowed in the wintertime, just this huge area of snow before the trees in a moonlit night. I just loved it. It was just beautiful. I'd love to go back there sometime and experience that again in the winter. Okay, now we're going to add a little bit more, again, once it dries a little bit of white along the edge. And a little bit on the head as well. Now, you might have covered up where the face is supposed to be, but it's pretty easy. It's just dots for the smile and the nose and the eyes. So that'll be pretty easy to do. Okay, now I think we've done enough on that. Let's rinse the brush out. And we're going to do the hat of the Mr. Snowman next. So I am just getting my brush cleaned here. Wipe it out on the side. And now I'm going to take this is a number 2-inch. It's just another, again, a Craft Smart brush. Dip it into the black. Can't really see it probably in the black. But then you want to follow the shape, the lines of the hat. Just like that. This is pretty simple shape. A little bit of curve on the top, a little bit of curve on the bottom. Just like that. And wipe your brush off a little bit. Grab a little bit of white and smush it out just a little bit. And now you want to go on to the left side of the hat, just a little bit. So it's a little bit of gray, but now when we put that moon in there, that is really going to make it pop. And you're saying, when are we going to do the moon? When are we going to do the moon? In a little bit. In a little bit. It's kind of a reward when you're done with it. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do the scarf on Mrs. Snowman. So dip into your red paint. Should still be able to just barely, and you know what? I got a drip of water there. Don't like that when that happens, but every once in a while it happens. Okay. Now, depending upon the type of red paint that you're using, sometimes it's not really opaque, or it'll just kind of blend into it and look dark. And that's okay, because this is a nighttime painting. So you want to make the scarf on the neck here. And we're going to let this dry a little bit, and then we're going to put a little bit of shading on this one too. But we want to have a base color of the red to begin with. Just bring it down. Follow the lines. If you go out of the lines a little bit, it's okay. Your scarf will just be a little bit thicker or a little bit longer. It's okay. It's your scarf that you're painting. You make it what you want it to look like. If you want to wait for it to dry and make it a buffalo check, you go right ahead. I'm not doing that on mine this time, but see, I had that little bit of water drop right there, and it kind of blended it a little bit with the red and the blue, so that's okay. All right, so I'm going to rinse my brush one more time. And again, I'm doing this so I don't bounce the camera, because I know when I watch it, that's irritating. So if I do any bounces of the camera, sorry about that. All right. Let's do the faces next. Okay. So I can still see I had an eye here. Eye here. And I'm just going to do smiley. I don't think it's on any of the places that I had it marked off to be, but that's okay. You still see its little smile. And I will do the same thing here. And we need the nose on her. There we go. As long as we have black in the paintbrush, let's go ahead and do the arms. There we go. We'll do this one. There we go. One arm to go. Bring that in a little bit so you can see where it's actually stuck into his side there. All right, we are getting close to being done. All right, so you want to do the earmuffs next? Good, we're going to do the earmuffs next. Rinse out the brush again. We're going to use that same round brush. And oops, I had another drip of water. Right about here, that's where you want the earmuff to go. That's where the ears are on Mrs. Snowman. I'm going to keep her ears nice and warm since she's out here in the cold. There we go. And what we want to do again is, you know what? Well, let's paint the nose next. So get your yellow paint. Put a little bit of that on the palette. Again, I'm just using Craftsmart yellow. I have a bunch of other paints, but this one I'm just using these paints for this painting. So now you want to get the yellow and red makes orange, and that is going to be his carrot nose. A little bit of water in this, so it's watered down a little bit. There we go. And we're going to outline that with black. So just let that dry a little bit if you got it watered down. If it's not watered down, that's okay. The earmuff, I'm going to do the black line on top of that now. We're kind of going out of order, but it allows paint to dry here and there, and I kind of like bouncing around on a painting. It just kind of, I think it comes to life more. Now, when you're rinsing your brush, if you kind of get a little bit of a drop here, just go on your palette and just tap it onto it, and it'll come right out. Then you don't have water drops on your painting. All right, now this one is a little bit of a curve, just like that. That's all it takes. And I see it's could be a little bit darker here now, so I'm going to go over that again on her arm. Same thing with her branch fingers. There we go. Again, I had a little bit of water there, but that's okay. All right. Rinse that out again. All right, now we're going to do the moon. Let's shoot for the moon. And I think we'll do the smaller brush this time. So going straight white. And this is a number 8 flat brush. For this, you want to follow the edges. You should be able to see this, still the line of the Sharpie through here. And if you change the angle where you're coming with it, sometimes it's easier to make the curve. You just kind of just let it glide to make your circle. Okay. Okay, now do you see how that works? How as soon as you put the moon on, it really makes the rest of it light up. I've always thought that's so cool when I do some highlighting. All right, so on mine here, I see that I can still see my line to the Sharpie. So I'm going to go over that. There we go. I want to get rid of that. I see a little bit here as well. I didn't see it earlier for some reason. So I'm covering that up all the way there. Okay. And I see a little bit over here. So where I can still see the line. I'm just covering that up a bit. Okay. And I can still see my Sharpie line right there. So I'm going to do a little bit of blending with, I keep the same brush here, but I'm going to get rid of most of the white out of it. And I'm going to do a little bit of black, a little bit of blue. I'll see how this works. Hope I don't wreck it. Just go across here like this. Sometimes this is easier to do when it's before we start doing the foreground, but I'm going to try to do this because it's just bugging me a little bit. So then I wipe out get my brush sort of dry again, so I can then blend it. Move it up a little bit. Same thing here, and the same thing there. Just you blend it in, it looks a little bit more natural instead of a harsh line, so then it has more of a shading. And you know what, we could do a little bit above this right here. Don't dip it into your brush, just keep it dry. And you add a little bit of depth to it. Work it up a little bit. Now we have a little bit of shadow in the snow. There we go. I'm liking the way that looks. But if you just let your brush go dry and you just kind of push it, it blends it a little bit. It's a dry brush blending with acrylic. Master that, your whole life changes. Okay. All right. Rinse that brush out again. Dab it out on your paper towel. And this is looking pretty good to me. We are about done. And I'm going to go with a little bit of black and a little bit of red. My red is still a little wet, but I'm going to put a little bit here. And a little bit on the side. That just kind of gives it some shading. And underneath her neck should be shaded a little bit. And we'll just put kind of a folded clothing line, a little bit of wrinkle. Do the same thing here and there. And we'll just do that here as well. So you have a little bit of texture in it. And we will rinse out the brush. And last thing we want to do with a painting is we want to sign it. So I'm going to rinse out my brush. I go back into the black paint here. Make sure you don't have any water on your brush. And you want to write your name. I'd say right over here. So I'm going to sign my name. I do have a little bit of water on the brush here. So it's going to be a little bit of a light black. Just like that. All right. Oh, you know what? I forgot the buttons on him. I forgot his buttons on his tummy. So, okay, let's do that real quick. So, you got to have his buttons on. All right. 3 buttons right on his tummy. Follow the curve. Gives a little bit more of 3 dimensions. See how I did that? Not just straight up and down, but you do a little bit of a curve to it. And I think, I was going to say we're done, but now that I'm looking at it, I think we should put a few stars in the background. So rinse out your brush again. Just get a little bit of paint on your brush, and you want to just barely touch. Make them a few different sizes. You don't want to put too many. You don't want to make them too big. Yeah, I think stars are good. I think this helps. Just breaks up the background a little bit. You don't want to do too many of them because you don't want it to look like snow, and you only want it on the sky, because if you start putting it on snow or on the snowman, you no longer have stars, but you have snow. And if you have a moonlit night, you're not going to have snow because you need clouds. So these are going to be little stars. And you put as many as you want wherever you want. But I think that's pretty good. Alrighty. I'm rinsing out my brush one more time. And I want you to wait just a couple minutes for your paint to dry. And then we are going to pull the masking tape off of the edges. So let's wait for that. All right, we are about ready to take the tape off the edges and reveal our nice little frame. But before I do that, I got to give a shout out to Bridget. After our last paint night, Bridget gave these to my wife to give to me. They are happy little tree mints. So thank you, Bridget. I love getting little Bob Ross things like this. This is so fun. So thank you very much. Okay, now it's time for the big reveal. Okay, I still have this secured to my work area here, so I'm going to need to pull that off first. And I'm just going to pull this up and rip my wrapping paper background. Okay, now the big reveal. Pull it off. I just love this part. This is so fun. Pull this off and you have a nice little frame for your painting. So there we go, all done. Thank you for joining me again for paint night. I hope you guys have a great Advent season and Merry Christmas. I'll see you next time.